All right, well, as explained in the summary video, the main thing here is we've sort of gone 3D. We've put the camera on a bit of a tilt, and it means now that we've also got the ability to move the tubes around in a sort of 3D space, or at least on the plane of this purple area here, which is sort of nominally the bench. The other thing is we've got rid of the little pipette guide thing on the tube. And now we just guide the pipette by clicking on the top of the tube. So that is going to make things a little bit easier to move around. The fact that we've now got this sort of 3D perspective means that we have to give the pipette barrel a little bit of color as well. And I think in future we'll try and even get rid of this too, because that's a little bit cumbersome. It'd be nice to just right click on the top of the tube to take the lid up. So that's where the improvements that have been made. The camera, the thing that makes that able to move around is putting on this camera panning script. And the camera panning script is quite simple. It just involves an update function. So every frame we're checking for if there's input from the keys that control the vertical, the up and down arrows, or the WS keys, and the keys that control the horizontal, so A and D, or the left and right arrows, and also the scroll wheel. And if there's any input from those, that's transformed into some sort of movement, either rotation around something or translation, left and right, up and down, to give the effect of zooming. And of course, all of these transform act on the object that the script is on, which is the camera. So that's what moves the camera around. The major change to the pipette was just to give it some color. We made a bench top, which is literally just a cube which has been extended out to make it really big in the X and the Z directions, and that sort of inhibits 0 on the y-axis, so it's sort of like flat on that surface. And then on the prefab for the tube, we added this top trigger. So remember in the last session we added a bottom trigger to enable the tube to be moved around. This time we've added a top trigger, which again is just a cylinder with a collider that the render has been turned off. Look, we could turn the render on again if we wanted to, but let's not. And that has now got the script that moves the pipette, because this is now clicking on this moves the pipette. So the key thing that's happened there is that this pipette guide script has moved from the top level of the tube to this trigger. And that means that we need to make a couple of little modifications to the script. The first is that it's not called anymore by pressing a button, it's called by holding the mouse down. So instead of this being a public function, it's now just something that is triggered on mouse down. So if the mouse is over the collider, this will trigger. The other thing that has to change then is that we're no longer acting on something that's on that top level. We actually have to say, we have to act on the level above, because we're in this little, the collider is actually in this thing, which is one level down from the top of the tube. So we have to interrogate the parent of this thing, and we also have to find out whether the lid is open or closed by interrogating the tube action script, which is on the parent. So that's why we've got these parent terms in here. And the if statement here is obviously to make sure that the tip is not engaged if the lid is down. Now, similarly, the tube actions script, that no longer needs the reference to the pipette button. because the pipette button doesn't exist anymore. So we've taken that off, and we don't need to activate it or inactivate it as a result of lid opening or closing. But we do now have to interrogate whether there's a tip engaged by going not to the top level, but by going to components in the children. And that's the major change there. We've just had to change a couple of levels because of the way that we're now acting on something that's at this level and not this level. So those are the major changes, and we'll talk more about that. Well, we won't talk more about it because that's the walkthrough.